Deep in the steaming jungles of the Pacific, Japanese soldiers had a name for the American pistol that hunted them through the darkness. They called it the short rifle of the devil. Others whispered about the thunder gun, whose booming report could be heard hundreds of yards away, striking terror into battle-hardened warriors who had faced everything from bayonets to flamethrowers. Yet studies of Japanese prisoners of war revealed something absolutely chilling. They feared this single handgun more than flamethrowers. Let that sink in for a moment. A pistol, not the weapon that turned men into living torches, kept enemy soldiers awake at night. The M1911 Colt 45 wasn't just another firearm, it was psychological warfare wrapped in 2.5 pounds of American steel. Before we continue, subscribe to my channel for more interesting insights and forgotten moments from World War II. To understand why this pistol became the stuff of nightmares, you need to go back 3 decades before Pearl Harbor. John Moses Browning designed the M1911 in 1911, but the real story starts even earlier during the Philippine-American War. American soldiers were facing Moro warriors who kept charging even after taking multiple .38 caliber rounds to the chest. These fighters would close the distance and kill soldiers before blood loss finally stopped them. The US military realized they needed something with genuine stopping power, something that would drop an attacker instantly. Browning's answer was the 45 ACP cartridge, a 230-grain bullet moving at 830 feet per second. That might sound slow compared to rifle rounds, but here's what matters. That heavy chunk of lead delivered 350 foot-pounds of energy at close range and created devastating temporary wound cavities in human tissue. The wide .45 caliber bullet didn't just punch a hole, it transferred massive hydraulic shock through the body. When the Pacific War erupted, Japanese officers carried the Type 14 Nambu pistol. On paper, it looked respectable with its 8mm round. In reality, the Nambu fired a cartridge with less than half the stopping power of the 45 ACP. Worse, the pistol's weak recoil springs corroded rapidly in tropical humidity, causing constant jams. The safety sat awkwardly on the rear of the frame and required 2 hands to operate. Japanese officers viewed the Nambu as a status symbol rather than a combat tool, which tells you everything about its battlefield effectiveness. Meanwhile, Marines were carrying a weapon that could be submerged in mud, briefly rinsed, and still fire reliably. The M1911 had only 38 total parts. No specialized tools were needed for maintenance. A Marine could field strip the entire pistol in under 30 seconds. The real horror began in close quarters combat. Pacific Island fighting meant brutal encounters in caves, bunkers, and thick jungle where men fought at distances measured in feet, not yards. The official effective range of the M1911 was 50 yards, but most Pacific combat happened within 10 feet. At that range, the Colt was absolutely devastating. Battle damage reports showed a 90% one-shot stop rate. Think about that statistic. 9 out of 10 times, a single .45 round ended the fight immediately. Some Marines reported seeing charging Japanese soldiers visibly knocked backward by the impact. The heavy bullet retained its lethality even after passing through foliage or cloth, and it could penetrate the standard Japanese steel helmet at close range. The rounds punched through bamboo walls and thin wooden structures that provided cover from rifle fire. But the physical damage was only part of the story. The psychological impact was something military analysts hadn't predicted. The M1911 fired a subsonic round, meaning the bullet traveled slower than the speed of sound. This created a distinctly deep, booming report instead of the sharp crack of supersonic rounds. Japanese troops could identify that sound from hundreds of yards away. Marines nicknamed it the Judge, because it always had the final say in an argument. Captured Japanese diaries started mentioning the weapon with a mixture of fear and respect. By 1945, captured Japanese documents listed the M1911 as one of 3 weapons their troops feared most. Japanese battlefield manuals began advising soldiers to avoid close-quarters combat with 45 armed Americans. Some units reported losing more men to pistols than rifles during night fighting. Captured officers later admitted they delayed assaults if they heard 45 shots, and some Japanese units withdrew prematurely from close combat specifically because of the Colt's reputation. The Americans recognized this fear and weaponized it. Propaganda leaflets dropped over Japanese positions specifically mentioned the Colt to demoralize enemy troops. Marine raiders requested extra .45 ammunition for jungle operations, and cave-clearing teams carried 2 additional magazines as standard, giving them 21 rounds total. The pistol's lanyard loop allowed Marines to secure it while climbing or swimming, and its design proved perfect for the Pacific environment. Salt water and sand had minimal effect on the steel construction. The parkerized finish resisted corrosion far better than the Nambu's blued steel. Marines discovered the weapon worked reliably even after being buried in volcanic ash. The magazine spring was so robust it could remain loaded for months without weakening, and the pistol could chamber and fire badly corroded ammunition that other weapons rejected. Japanese armories captured M1911 pistols and attempted to analyze them. They never successfully copied the design. The engineering was too refined, too perfectly balanced between simplicity and effectiveness. The grip angle of 108 degrees promoted natural point shooting. The beaver tail grip safety prevented hammerbite during rapid firing. The thumb safety was positioned perfectly for natural grip and quick disengagement. Even the sights were deliberately crude to encourage instinctive shooting at close range rather than careful aiming. Every detail had been thought through and tested over decades of use. Some Japanese officers began secretly trading captured swords for American .45 pistols, a remarkable admission considering the cultural significance of those blades. Stories emerged of Japanese troops hoarding grenades specifically to counter .45 armed Marines in trenches. The weapon's intimidation factor sometimes ended fights before shots were fired. Marine officers reported increased confidence among troops who qualified with the pistol. The Colt .45 remained in U.S. military service for 74 years, from 1911 to 1985. Over 2.7 million were produced during World War II alone. The design was so refined, it required virtually no improvements throughout the entire war. Compare that to most weapons which need constant modification and updates. The M1911 was already perfect for its role. Its ammunition was interchangeable with the Thompson submachine gun, simplifying supply lines. The low velocity meant less chance of over-penetration in friendly fire situations. The semi-automatic action allowed faster reloading under stress compared to revolvers. The fixed barrel design contributed to exceptional accuracy. In the end, the Colt .45 became more than just a sidearm. It was a force multiplier that gave individual Marines the confidence to face overwhelming odds in the Pacific's hellish close-quarters combat. Japanese soldiers learned to fear that distinctive boom echoing through the jungle, knowing that the thunder gun had found another target. If this story changed how you think about World War II weapons, smash that like button and subscribe for more forgotten history. Share this with anyone who thinks modern firearms are automatically superior, because sometimes a design from 1911 remains unmatched over a century later.